So it's lesson 9 in mobile and pervasive computing. I've been marking the assignments. I apologize. Normally, I try to have everything marked within a week. I apologize that I haven't finished. Some of you have received your marks for assignment 2. And so far, the projects I'm getting have been really good. I've been really happy with them. Not my excuse, because I'm not making an excuse. My explanation as to why your things aren't marked yet is simply these projects are taking me a lot longer than marking web projects, where typically I can just run them in my browser. But because I've got to download each project, unzip it, and then wait for the Gradle build to run and the emulator to load, it's just a long process, and there's 35 of them. So I'm averaging about, it actually takes somewhere in the neighborhood of an hour to do 6 or 7 projects, and I've got 35 to mark. So I will keep marking them after class today. I have some more time, so I'm going to spend most of my afternoon marking. I would hope to have everybody's marks to you by the end of the weekend. I will do my best to do that and provide you with some meaningful feedback on assignment 2. So you should expect to get that feedback by the end of the weekend. Okay. So in terms of our plan, what we've got going on, look at a few things. So today we're going to look at deployment. I may shuffle things around a little bit next week. So I had a couple of weeks for the camera and then app demos. We do still have a week. So I may bump the camera in here. I know a few people are using it, wanting to use it on their app. We may do something else next week. That's still to be determined. So I do also want to show a quick fix. I know something I struggled with, and a number of people emailed me the same problem around the Google Smart Lock, preventing us from ever actually being able to sign out of our app if we signed in with Google. So there's a simple fix for this that I've implemented. I haven't actually tested it, but I'm going to test it. So thanks to Hayden, who I don't think is able to join us this morning because he's working. So Hayden found the one line of code we need in our sign-in activity, and he just submitted a pull request to my Restorator app. So I've pulled this down so you can see the code here in green on GitHub. So in the auth UI, we can programmatically disable the smart lock. So I'll just throw this line of code in the chat. So this goes into that start activity for result. So I've added it, but I haven't actually run this. I'm going to try this out now and see if I can sign in with Google and then actually manage to sign out without the smart lock just keeping me permanently logged in. So Hayden submitted as a pull request to my Restorator, which I've accepted and merged the pull request. I've got my Restorator open, so I'm just going to give it a try. So I'm going to launch my emulator. I'd also like to say, just while I'm waiting for this to load, I've been really impressed, not only I think I mentioned with the overall quality of the apps I'm getting, but with a lot of the independent learning I've seen. That so far in the assignments I've marked, people have really taken a lot of initiative to find other functionality. I'm seeing references to third-party articles, and people have really taken what we've done in class and expanded on that, which is great to see. So I've been really pleased with that. So I'm going to try my Google sign-in. Previously, I'd removed my Google account from the device, so the smart lock didn't keep signing me in. But I'm going to add my Google account back in and see if I can sign into my Restorator app with it, but yet still sign out and not automatically be redirected back in. So I'm going to sign in with Google. Check my phone for my two-factor authentication. Yes, it's me. So now that my account's added back to the emulator, it's going to sign me into the app. So I can navigate around, see my profile. Now I can log out and that smart lock is disabled. So that code just went right here in our auth UI get instance when we're invoking the Google UI for sign in. So you may want to add that to your project. I know a number of people were having the same issue from the emails I got saying I've signed in with Google and then I can never sign out. So we can just programmatically disable it. So thanks to Hayden for that tip. So what are we going to do this week? We're not actually really doing much coding at all. I think we're basically going to have to modify one line of code pretty much today. So what we're going to look at is deploying our apps to the Play Store. Okay, so I'm going to go through the process. I'll show you, I kind of did it. I've been playing around with the deployment because Google updates this regularly. And then we're going to look at actually taking the apps that we've built and deploying them into the store. So it's a bit of a process here. So the first thing, and I've put this link on Blackboard, is in order to publish to the store, you do need a Google Play license. I can't force you to do this, but you're not going to be able to publish your apps. And if you don't publish your apps, I can't give you marks for publishing them. Yes, I realize there is a cost. I try not to have my students incur costs for anything, which is why I never ask you to buy a textbook in any of my courses. Under the circumstances, I would suggest this is not an unreasonable fee to pay to be able to publish your apps to the Play Store, which you can then put as part of your portfolio. It's going to help you in your job hunting if you can point to, hey, I have published apps in the Google Play Store. And I know I mentioned this last week, particularly compared to Apple's developer license, this is far more reasonable. Apple charges $99 annually, whereas Google charges $25 for a lifetime license. So I will put the link in the chat. It is on Blackboard as well in the Lesson 9 folder. So you do need a Google account to register, but it's worth doing. I know you guys are students. Many of you are international students. I know school is expensive for you, but the $25 fee really is something I strongly urge you to pay for so that you can get a license and publish to the store. So how does the process work? I'm going to kind of walk you through what it's going to look like. I'll show you the end result of a couple of test deployments I've made, and then we're going to go through it with our Restorator app. So within Android Studio, the first thing we need to do is to generate, actually this screenshot's a bit old. I should probably update this. Hang on, I'll do that right now. Let me fix it. The option we want is actually this one. Under the build menu, we're going to generate a signed bundle, APK. So the option in my slide deck is a little bit old. It says generate signed APK. So it should now say generate signed bundle. So this is going to compile all the files for deployment to the store into a single file, an Android app bundle file. So we're going to get Then we're going to get prompted, do we want an AAB, an Android app bundle, or an APK? If we're deploying to the store, we want this Android app bundle. It's going to compress things. This is if we're just going to deploy the APK directly to a device. So we're always going to choose the AAB. We then are going to need to generate a key for this. So we'll store it as a JKS file. And then we're going to go into the Google Play Store and we're going to create a new app. And in there, you can see from this navigation, we'll talk about this, there's different release types we can look at. So we're going to create a release, and this is what our file is going to look like. It's going to have an AAB, an Android app bundle extension, and it's going to be inside our app release folder. And generally, it's fairly small. So like my test app was, 3 megs. It's not very large for an app of this size. And then in the Google dashboard, in the Play Store dashboard, there's like a checklist where it will walk us through the steps. Unfortunately, Google's changed this over the last few months, and they've made the checklist confusing. Before, there used to be a checklist on the left, and anywhere you go, you could see what steps have you completed and what steps were still outstanding. They've kind of buried this now, so the checklist isn't as obvious. But I will help us, and it's not quite as linear the way it was before, but we'll navigate through it together. So this is sort of what the checklist looks like now. So here are some of the steps we've got to do. We've got to set up who can access the app, and we've got to complete a number of things, whether our app contains ads. We have to go through a questionnaire to generate a content rating. We've got to specify who our target audience is, whether it's a news app. We've got to categorize it, as well as put in a description with some images. So the content rating questionnaire looks something like this. It asks us about whether there's violence, sexuality, profanity, Okay, Andrew, did you try to use a personal Google account or an organizational Google account? Okay, you can't use an organization account for this. It has to be a personal Google account. Try in an incognito window in Chrome. There may be a cookie tied to your organizational account. Try that and we'll see what happens. Before we can release the app, we have to provide certain graphics. So we're going to need to take some screenshots. I'm going to use the Windows Snip tool today. And there's a few tools we need. We need an icon. So I've included some links on Blackboard to a site that we can use to generate a logo for non-commercial use. And we've got to save that as a JPEG or PNG at 512 by 512 pixels. We need a featured graphic, so that's like a banner. And again, I've provided another link. Okay, great. That's good. Glad I fixed that. So feature graphic, which has to be 1024 by 500. So what does the feature graphic look like? So for example, here's one from last year. So we had to create the logo. You've got to include screenshots. I'm not sure where it actually shows the feature graphic. And then we need at least 2 phone screenshots and 2 tablet screenshots. So we need to run our app in our emulator with first a phone emulator and then a tablet emulator. I'm going to use the Windows Snip tool to generate those screenshots. And we need to upload all of them. We've got to select the country. So where is our app available? And then we have to go and create a release. We're also going to get this warning. If we just bundle our app and upload it, we're going to see this warning in the Play Store. The bundle contains Java or Kotlin code, which might be obfuscated, meaning it's compiled and hidden. We recommend you upload a deobfuscation file to make your crashes easier to analyze and debug. So inside of build.gradle, we've got this under build types. We have this minify enabled. It defaults to false. So if I go look at my Restorator and open up build.gradle, we'll see down here in the build type section, this minification is disabled. So the Play Store, it doesn't error out, but it will want us to toggle this to true so it can provide more information if our app crashes. So that's one little gotcha in the Play Store. Here's another one. You can't upload, let's say we upload a bundle to the Play Store, and then we make a change to it. We build a new bundle and we re-upload. If we do that, we're going to get an error saying the version code already exists. So we haven't looked at the version code before, but it's also in build.gradle right here in our in our Android default config section. So our version code defaults to 1 and our version name defaults to 1.0. The version name is what users see in the Play Store. So they'll see the current version here. The version code is only for us, but we have to update this number every time we generate and upload a new bundle. You've got to increment that. So we have to do this manually anytime we want to upload a new version to the store. Okay. But the version name, that's what shows up in the Play Store to end users. And ultimately what shows up on their device, if a user looks at their app information, it's going to tell them this version name value. So we set what countries our app is available in. We also have to set the pricing, whether it's free or not. Then we get to kind of the confusing part, which is the release tracks. So these are all the different options we've got. So we've got several different testing tracks. So closed and internal testing, those are similar. Internal would be members just of an organization. Closed means the app is available to any Google accounts we grant access to. Open testing is, as it seems, anybody can test the app, but it shows up as in development. It doesn't show up as release. And then finally, when we want it to be public, we can release to production. If we're doing a test release, we can specify how many people there are, whether we're limiting the number of testers or whether it's going to be unlimited. So then it gives us kind of the testing track. So what does this look like in the Play Store? I'll show you a couple of apps. So here's one I was just playing around with a little earlier this morning. I just created like a Hello World app and deployed it. So what did I do? So it says production is inactive. And we can see the checklist. So I've set it up. I've set this for closed testing. I'm not exactly sure why it keeps telling me to select my testers because I've already done this. So here's the link to somebody who wants to join. If I copy that, I can look in my browser. So it'll generate a testing link we can send out for an invite. So I've done all the other things. I've created a release here. So I uploaded a version of my bundle, version code 1.0. I set it for closed testing, and I've released it, which Google is going to review. So your apps aren't available right away. And then in my store listing, so you do have to sort of jump around in here a bit. So in my store listing, here were the images. I had to give it a name, a short and long description. I have my 512 by 512 logo, my featured graphic, and then my phone and tablet screenshots. You can also include a video a video URL, a YouTube URL if you want. I also did one yesterday where I took my deployment. Let's see, where is it? So I took my test one yesterday. This one I released right to production. And I submitted it yesterday afternoon, but it's still not visible. Okay, it's still being reviewed. Google takes much longer now to review your apps than they used to. You used to be able to release them to production and very shortly after they were available, but now they want to review them. So it's been almost 24 hours now. So it says I'm in production, but the app, you can't actually find it. So if I search, it doesn't show up in my list of apps here, not yet. So I searched for my developer ID and it's still not showing up. I'm not exactly sure with their new process exactly how long it will take. We'll see. Okay, so we want to go through this process of setting up a release, and I will leave it up to you. The easiest thing is just to roll it out right to production, but I might do a testing track release. So you do need to set up your Google Play account in order to do this. And then the last thing we'll do, and you'll need to do for your assignment, is eventually we'll need to set up some rules around securing Firebase. So there's a link here. I think I already sent this out as an announcement. I'm just going to log into the Firebase console for a second. So at the very least, what we want to do in our database is set it so that if I go to Cloud Firestore, at least users have to log in order to read and write data. So this was the original default rule we got. They've also got this playground here, which is kind of neat. So you can write a rule and see what happens. You can simulate it. Here, if the user is authenticated or not, and you can run the app this way. So we'll look at locking our database down so only authenticated users. So I did send this link out. We'll come back and play around with this a bit later, but our Firebase database should not be open. We're going to want to make sure at the very least users are logged in order to read and write. You may have different rules in your assignment. So let's go and try and deploy this. Now there is one gotcha for anybody who has downloaded my app from GitHub. Here's the issue. Here's the problem you're going to run into. If you're using my GitHub repository, your package name for your entire app is going to be com.infrontofthenet.restaurator. That's going to cause a problem because these package names have got to be unique in the Play Store. We can't have two different apps that have the same package name. They've got to be unique. So if you're using my Git repository, you're going to need to refactor this. You're not going to be able to use in front of the net, nor should you be using in front of the net as your package name. So if that's what you're using, you're going to want to refactor and rename it to something unique. If you can't think of a unique name, the easy suggestion would be okay, so make sure you use some kind of unique package name. You may need to refactor it. If you're working with your own app and you've never taken my Git repository, then you shouldn't have a problem. So I'm going to go to my build.gradle. To prevent that obfuscation warning, I'm going to change my line 23, my minify enabled. I'm going to toggle that from false to true. Michael, that's a good question. The challenge with that is part of your grade is for deployment. It's per account, Mark. It's not per app. So, Michael, the problem is you're each being marked for your deployment. If you're sharing an account, I really have no way of knowing who deployed the app. And because the apps it's an individual project, not a group project, I'm afraid I'm going to have to say no to that. Fair enough. And it's a fair question. As I said, I'm trying to be mindful of the cost and minimize it for you. I would prefer that this was free, but it just isn't. So I think it would be best that you have your own, and then if something happens to your app, then at least it's within your own account and no one else potentially is interfering with it. So you'll need your own account. Yep. So Mark, just coming back to your question, you can publish. There's no limit to the number of apps you can publish with this. So you sign up one time, you pay the $25. You want to publish 100,000 apps to the Play Store, you're free to do so. So once you change build.gradle, Android Studio is going to prompt you to do a sync. So let's do that. And then we're going to generate the signed bundle through the build menu. So click on your build menu, click generate signed bundle. And then we're going to we'll just leave the default here. We want an Android app bundle. If you click this read more, the article that's going to open is telling you if you're planning on deploying this version to the Play Store, then choose Android app bundle. That's what we want to do, so I'll just click next. So now we need to create, if we have an existing key store, we can use it. I have a bunch, but I'm going to create a new one. So I'll just click on the Create New button here, and I'm going to browse. It should take me to my users directory. So in here, I've already created, but you may want to create, I've created a key stores folder that stores all of my Android key stores. So you may want to create a key stores folder, and I'll call it Restorator, and the extension is going to be JKS. So it doesn't really matter where you save the file, but this is a good place. It's descriptively named. If I need to go find any of my keys later, I can find them here in the key stores folder. If I'm going too fast or you need me to review any of these steps, just let me know, please. So give your key store a name. And now we've got to put in a password. I'm not exactly sure, so we need a password for the path and a password for the key. I'm also just going to put a note in my lesson file about the password in case I need it later, because you can't get this key back. You do have to fill out some information. For organization, you can put Georgian College. You may be able to leave it blank, but you do have to put in your name, city, province, and country. I'm going to leave the certificate as valid for 25 years, and I'll just leave the alias. So you need the 4 password fields, your first name, last name, city, province, country. I'm not sure if you can leave the organization out or not. Once you've completed this new key store window, you can click OK. And I'll leave this box checked. Export the encrypted key for enrolling published apps in Google Play app signing. So that'll let the Play Store take care of the app signing, which is just verifying the authenticity of the app. And I'll maybe check remember passwords. I don't think it's that critical. I've put my password in a file anyway. So just make sure that export encrypted key for enrolling published apps is checked. And I'll click next. So it wants to know which variant are we building, a debug version or a release version. I'm going to pick release. You can even do both, but we don't really need the debug variant. We really just need the release variant. Click finish. And then this will take a minute and it's going to generate our Android app bundle, our AAB file. So I'll click finish here, or I pick release. We'll let Gradle build our bundle. It shouldn't take too long because our app is relatively small. And the file it's going to generate probably be a few megabytes. Somewhere between 3 and 5 megabytes, I would imagine, would be the bundle size. So we'll let this run. We'll get a little notification down here at the bottom right when it completes. There'll be a link to open the folder containing the bundle. But before we start in the Play console, we'll also need to create the images that our Play Store listing is going to need. So we'll wait for our bundle to finish. Shouldn't take too long. And then we'll use some of the links that I've put on Blackboard in terms of creating some of those supporting image assets that we need. Excuse me. Okay, so it tells me it successfully generated our app with one build variant, which is the release. And if I click locate, little link here, it opens up in Windows. It opens my app, and now under app and release, we've now got a 2.9 meg AAB file. There's our app release. So this is the file we have to upload to the Play Store. So I'm just going to leave this for now. We'll come back to this because we have some more work to do on our local machines before we can start doing things in the Google console. So we've taken care of our first two steps, which is to disable the minification and generate the Android app bundle. Once we've done these things, we're going to need to use some of these links. Actually, one thing we can do is we could start taking our screenshots now. In order to release our app, we're going to need 2 phone and 2 tablet views. So if you haven't launched your app yet, make sure you start it up in the emulator. First start it up in a phone emulator, like I've got running, and then we're also going to have to run it in a tablet emulator. So I'm going to sign back into my app with my Google account. And I'm just going to use the Windows Snipping Tool to take a couple of screenshots and save them as images. So I'm going to search for snip. I'll click on the new button. Yep, that works too. Thanks, Tim. And I'll just I'm going to grab a bit of the phone Chrome as well. So I'll take our list activity and I'm going to save this. So I'll create a folder on my computer. I'll create a new folder for Restorator, just putting it inside my pictures folder. So I'll call this phone 1. The name really isn't important. And I'll save it as a PNG. I'll then click my Add a Restaurant button to load our main activity. And I'm going to make a second snip. Grab another screenshot. Save this as phone 2. So now of the 6 images we need, I've got the first 2. I'm going to turn off my phone emulator now. Don't really need it running. I'll go back to Android Studio. And I actually already have another emulator. I've got a Nexus 9, so this is a tablet. If you don't already have a tablet emulator here, you'll need to install another Android virtual device through the AVD manager. So if you've only got one here, or whatever devices you have here are phones, you'll want to go to AVD manager. You're going to need to create a new virtual device, and I'll wait and give a bit of time because the virtual devices, they're large, as you can see. They may take a little while to download. So you can create a new virtual device and pick a tablet. So I'm using the Nexus 9. Doesn't really matter which one you use, but we need at least 2 tablet screenshots. And you can't do this without a tablet emulator. So again, I'll show you how to get back to that. In your list of devices, you click AVD Manager. You create a virtual device and choose tablet and just pick one of these virtual devices. You click on it, you'll click next, and you'll have to download and install that emulator for that device. It'll take a little bit to do. So you may have to do this as we take over a break. And then you can come back, and once it's installed, then you can take your tablet screenshots. If you don't get them right this minute, don't panic. That's okay. So I'm going to use my tablet emulator now. And I'm going to take 2 more screenshots of our app in a tablet view. So can't launch the app without these. So here's my Nexus tablet. And now I'm going to use my snip tool to take 2 more screenshots. So I'm going to save this one as tablet 1. And I'll take a screenshot of the main activity as well, and that'll be tablet 2. And then I can close down my emulator. So I have the 4 screenshots we need, 2 phone, 2 tablet. So we've done these. We now need to create an app icon and a featured graphic. We'll do the featured graphic next. there are two links on Blackboard that are going to help us create that featured graphic. So I'm going to show you those links now. So I'm going to click the second link and the third link. So this norio.be, some developer really nicely created a graphic generator that's really designed specifically. Well, you can get any one of these, but the default is creating the right-sized Android feature graphic. So it's a little open source thing. Because I'm recommending everybody use his tool, I gave him a €5 donation yesterday. So it gives us this default banner here, which we can change. So we can change the background colors, the fonts, and the text. So first of all, for my background, let's see, I'm going to go back to Android Studio, and I'm going to grab the colors out of here. So I think my background, I'm going to use this teal 700 color. So the first thing I want to do is change the color here. The challenge is this site uses RGB values. It doesn't use hex values for colors. Whereas in Android Studio, I've got values in hex, so we need to convert them. How do we convert them, you say? Glad you asked. This third link here, rapidtables.com, convert color hex to RGB. If we open that up, this will convert the hex color values in our Android Studio colors to the RGB values that we need in the graphic generator. So open up that third link as well, rapidtables.com/convert/color/hex to RGB. I'm going to go back to Android Studio. I'm going to take this teal color. I'm going to copy the hex value. I'm going to paste it in here and convert. That is clearly not the right color. Oh, it's because I've got the FF in front. Whoops. So there's my green. So I can see my RGB value 1, 135, and 134. So I'm going to take those values over here. And I'm going to change 1, 135, and 134. I'll click Add to Custom Colors and OK. I'm going to get rid of the gradient. I don't actually need it. And then I want to change the heading and the subheading in my graphic. So I'm going to click on the title. And I'm going to change the text to say Restorator. And I'm going to change the color here as well. So I'll use one of the other colors from our Android Studio colors. So I'm maybe going to choose this purple. We'll see how it looks. I need to put it back into my hex converter. So 98, 0, and 238. So I'm going to change the text color and see how it looks. I'll add that to my custom colors. And then I'm going to click on the subtitle. This one, I'm just going to make the text color white. So I'm just describing the app, putting in our course code. So you can change things around. You can change the fonts if you want. We've got a few options. Yeah, I'll change the font here to something else. You can play around with this. Mark, do you mean in here or in Android Studio? Okay, 1 second, and I will want to do that. You click on the drop-down menu. Can you be, Mark, where is the which drop-down menu? I'm probably missing it. Thank you. I still don't see where that is. I see your screenshot of the menu, but I don't know what this is referring to. Yeah, okay, I guess we're looking at different things. Anyway, if you have the option to switch to hex, great. I don't see it on mine. So there's my graphic. You could also add an image in here. But now I've used the colors from the app, I've described it, and it's already at the correct size. So you can play around with this banner however you like. I'm going to export. And, oh, whoops, sorry, I don't want to export. I'm going to download it. I have made a donation to the developer here already, so I'm going to download this. Just call it feature banner, PNG. So now I've got 5 of the 6 image assets we need. We've got the feature graphic, got my phone screenshots, I've got my tablet screenshots. So the last thing we'll create is an app icon. Now it is 5 to 12, so I'm going to recommend that we take a little break here. Okay. When we come back, we'll look at a logo maker where we can generate an app and download it. We'll use the colors. We'll find an icon that works well. We'll save that, and then we'll go into the Play Store and we'll start creating the app and going through the process of getting a release done. Okay, so let's take a break here. I'm going to pause the recording. We'll come back in 10 minutes.